So it's 42 degrees inside the cabin and about 35, I think, outside. Personally, that's not that uncomfortable to me when I'm working, moving around, wearing very warm clothing. But you have to account for the time it takes for a wood stove to heat up a space like this. This cabin is 600 square feet with a loft and basically a story and a half of these kind of cathedral-style ceilings. What that means is we have a fairly large amount of cubic air to heat. The fans are there to help push heat around. They're here to be a heat sink, which is basically radiating heat back out and retaining a little bit of it. That helps a little bit, but what's more important is time. What I've noticed with this stove and this cabin with the air that I'm trying to heat, if I don't really feel a difference for the first, I would say honestly, 2 hours. I'm probably going to do another future video where I do a 30-minute interval of a heat check and kind of get some actual data with an average fire, and I have a thermometer on the top so I can actually measure the temperature as far as that thermometer is reading. But the thing about this one is you got to think about it ahead of time. You got to start your fire 2 hours before you need to feel warm. And that's not... I would say there's evidence that this is not an undersized stove with the fact that if I go to bed around 11 p.m. with a comfortable cabin, call it 60, 65 degrees, maybe even a little bit warmer depending how long and hot the fire ends up running. If I stuff the stove full of wood and go to bed, the cabin is still, and it obviously depends on the outside temperature, but on an average night, and typically speaking, it's still in the 50s or maybe even 60s when I wake up, which in these off-grid 3,000 foot elevation conditions, that's very reasonable. So the biggest thing is understanding your lead time in order to push all the cold air out and get warm air to just neutralize the cabin is really the first step in getting a comfortable living space. Again, I'm going to be doing a future video where I record the temperature change and the temperature inside the cabin, outside the cabin, and temperature of the stove, so I can get some data and kind of get a better idea of what that temperature difference looks like. And I almost always run the stove with the damper completely closed.